The House of Representatives got together and voted on the budget. It passed by a 2-vote lead, 217 to 215. All of the Democrats voted against it, as well as Kentucky State Representative Thomas Massie. At least I believe he represents the state of Kentucky. He was the lone Republican to vote against this bill. He is the only Republican with a fucking spine, because the contents of this bill are going to lead to folks in red states getting sick and fucking dying. The biggest part of this bill are the $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, which serves low income and disabled people all across the United States. There were many Republicans who were skeptical of this bill for that exact reason. Republicans in swing districts, Republicans in poor districts. Mike Johnson from Louisiana has, I think, like nearly 40% of people in his district rely on Medicaid. And he takes that away from them to finance yet another tax cut for the mega wealthy. This is courtesy of Political. House approves, quote, big, beautiful bill budget after wild whip effort. House Republicans approved a budget framework for President Donald Trump's sweeping domestic policy agenda Tuesday, a major victory for Speaker Mike Johnson, who worked with Trump and fellow leaders in a chaotic last-ditch effort to win naysayers within the GOP ranks. The vote went almost entirely along party lines, 217 to 215, with every Democrat voting against the measure and only Rep. Thomas Massie of Kentucky joining them. Adopting the budget measure is a key step towards passing the big, beautiful bill that Trump and Johnson have called for, one that includes border security, tax, and energy provisions that the president campaigned on. Shame on every Republican whose district is reliant on Medicaid for voting on this. I hope that you get voted out of your next election. You deserve it. You spat in the mouth of your constituents. You should not be allowed to show face in your district. Every time you do a public appearance, your constituents should be there berating you, and they will be. We've already seen this across the country. People are fed the fuck up with their Republican representatives because they are no longer working for their districts. They are now working for the 1%. The Senate passed a competing plan last week, and the Republicans in the two chambers must now reconcile the significant differences between the two fiscal blueprints. We're going to celebrate tonight, Johnson told reporters after the vote, adding that House Republicans will roll up their sleeves as they prepare to reconcile their plans with the Senate. Tuesday night's vote came after a wild scene on the House floor that played out over the course of hours. Around 6:30 p.m., members were called to the floor to begin voting on an unrelated measure with the budget plan to follow, but that unrelated vote was held open for more than an hour as the GOP whip team worked to win over the holdouts. Democrats screamed regular order as the planned 15-minute vote stretched on and on. Shortly after 7:30, the vote was closed and members were informed the budget vote was canceled. Minutes later, the leader sent out another alert saying the vote was back on. The holdouts included Representatives Tim Burchett of Tennessee, Warren Davidson of Ohio, and Victoria Spartz of Indiana, as well as Massie. All four voiced public opposition to the budget plan Tuesday, and could be seen on the House floor during the evening vote series speaking to various Republican leaders. The fiscal hawks all raised objections about inadequate spending cuts in the measure. Davidson also raised concerns about how Republican leaders plan to handle the impending March 14th government funding deadline. Trump spoke over the phone at various points with several of the holdouts, according to the two Republicans familiar with the whip effort. Johnson later said the calls were, quote, a big help. Because of the House GOP's tiny majority, and the united opposition of Democrats, these four members could together block action, and they didn't. Because they're spineless losers. Burchett, Davidson, and Spartz are all losers. They are disgusting public servants. But Johnson and Trump managed to win them over one by one. Spartz said in an online post that she came around because Trump had a, quote, personal commitment to save healthcare and make it better for physical and fiscal health for all Americans. I trust his word. She's so fucking stupid. This guy is a profound liar. He's a he doesn't even exist in reality anymore. I'm not talking about him lying by like misremembering the specific figures on a policy plan, because that happens from time to time, especially when it comes to, numbers and things of that nature. No, this guy just fucking lies. He lied he lies about the dumbest fucking things. He lied about the water in California. He thought that there was this massive reservoir that Gavin Newsom was hoarding for himself up in Sacramento and in parts of central California, and that's why LA was on fire, even though there was more than enough water in California to fight the fire, but it was the municipalities who didn't have the means of getting that water out of the fire hydrants in these communities. He just lies. And if you believe him, you're an idiot. You are a 1 IQ member of Congress. Davidson said in his own post that he, quote, finally received the assurances I needed that there will be cuts to discretionary spending ahead of the March funding deadline, and that, quote, we will work together to develop a plan for further discretionary spending cuts that could survive passage in the Senate. Oh my God. Like, I hope that this guy gets like a shoe thrown at him by one of his constituents, because he deserves it. And Burchett told reporters that Trump, quote, committed to me that he's going to go after the spending in a lot of these big departments, and that more generally Republicans are going in the right direction. You could say this all you want. It doesn't distract from the fact that one of the largest provisions in this bill, the most talked about provision in this bill by far, are the nearly $1 trillion cut to Medicaid. You can't hide from this fact. It's inescapable. You can lie and say that Democrats voted against no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. That didn't happen. That's not a policy prescription in the bill. But what is a policy prescription is taking $880 billion away from Medicaid, away from low income and disabled people. It's not everything I wanted, but in this game, you're either at the table or on the menu. It's time to get to the table. No. We are so far beyond this realm of politics. The Republicans have been unwilling to compromise with Democrats for more than a fucking decade. Since Barack Obama got elected, they got together and said he will not pass anything. We will not allow any legislation to go through, even if it is beneficial for our constituents. This is the mindset that the Republican Party has. They don't care if people suffer. It is a fucking game to these people. They are so far removed, at least the Republicans in the Senate and the higher ranking members of the House of Representatives. They are so far removed from the struggle of the everyday American, and that they have nothing else going for them in their lives. All they have is their ghoulish behavior to lean on. Only Massey remained unconvinced. Meanwhile, a different faction of the GOP conference, moderate Republicans, many representing swing districts, had aired qualms about the scale of the Medicaid cuts implied by the budget plan. The group, however, quickly softened. Yeah, because they're fucking losers, dude. They have no convictions. This is what it looks like when you don't believe in anything. When you have no convictions, no ideology, no sense of being beholden to the people who voted for you. As much as I don't want to compliment Thomas Massey, he did the right thing in this instance. And I'm sure that I disagree with him on virtually everything. But him not joining the rest of the Republicans was the right thing to do in this instance. Because he believes in at least something. He at least believes in Medicaid. He may not believe in the expansion of it, but he at least understands that it serves a necessary purpose to so many people, particularly in his district. That group, however, quickly softened on Monday night. Some said that a presentation from House leaders had moved them closer to supporting the budget plan, and by midday Tuesday, House leaders were confident enough to move toward a final vote. After it was all over, top Democratic leaders said Republicans had betrayed Americans by advancing a plan that they said would cut taxes for the rich while cutting benefits for the poor and middle class. Of course. Of course, and we have data on this as well. I will show you in a minute. Quote, they chose their billionaire puppet masters over the American people, said minority leader Hakeem Jeffries, pot calling the kettle black. In this instance, Democrats were unified, and we will remain unified throughout the process because this reckless Republican budget will bring nothing but destruction to the American people. Several Democrats who have faced health challenges and missed House votes rushed back to Washington for the budget showdown. That forced Johnson to scrounge up every vote he could. There was oh my God, what was her name? Is it Kathy Peterson? She was on maternity leave and came to Washington with her 1-month-old son to vote no on this bill. Maternity leave, a month removed from giving birth to a human. And she brought that human being to the vote. Tuesday's vote set a harsh reality check between House and Senate Republicans who all want to push the president's agenda forward, but still have profoundly different approaches on key issues. The Senate, for instance, is looking to avoid the deep cuts to Medicaid that the House is leaning on for significant cost cutting. Senate Republicans are also insisting that they won't support a final measure that only extends Trump's tax cut temporarily. That's so sick. They're like, actually, no. We want to perma-fuck everybody making fewer than $360,000. We want people at the poverty line to be fucking further beat down by society. That could require making significant changes to the House blueprint, putting the fragile GOP support for the measure in jeopardy. Senate Majority Leader John Thune congratulated the House GOP for, quote, moving our team one step closer to advancing the president's agenda, while also calling for a permanent extension to the Trump tax cuts, a goal that will be difficult to carry out under the House budget plan. The House and Senate must adopt identical budget resolutions to unlock the power of reconciliation, which allows parties with unified control of Congress and the House of Congress and the White House to pass massive policy bills along party lines, sidestepping the Senate filibuster. Reconciliation basically just allows for a simple majority instead of a super majority. In order to provide a visual for these tax cuts, because I can fucking yap about this as much as I want, and it may change your mind, it may not, it's the territory, but there is data on this. There is data that shows people are going to be mega fucked. These figures are courtesy of the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. There are 3 of them here. By the way, the Twitter account that posted this is Rutger Bregman. Our first chart. Trump's tax proposals cut taxes for the richest 5% while raising taxes for the other groups. The poorest 20%, so those earning $0 to $28,600, all the way up to people earning $360,000, will see a tax increase. The biggest being thrust upon what is called the fourth 20% owners. These are people earning between $94,000 and $157,000, where their tax bill will go up by nearly $1,800. The people at the lower end of this bracket already struggle to pay taxes because they have no money. And the Republicans want to further extort these people. Meanwhile, the richest 1% see an average tax cut or an average tax change of minus $36,000. But it gets worse because these figures are scary. But the percentage figures are what really gets me. The poorest Americans see the largest tax increase from Trump's tax proposal. The average tax change as a share of income in 2026 for the poorest 20% of Americans will be 5%. 4.8% to be exact. 5% of someone earning less than $30,000 a year is massive. This is why these tax cuts for the rich are so insidious. They are further taking money from people who are already struggling. The second 20% will see an average tax change of plus 3.5%. It then goes up to 2.1%, 1.4%, and then it ends at 0.3%. Meanwhile, earners making more than $360,000 a year will see a tax cut of 1.3%. And the richest 1% of Americans will see an average tax cut of 1.2%. These are massive percentages. 1% for every $1 million that you make is a lot of money, dude. Just as having 5% of your money taken away from you every year when you're already making, a slave wage, a poverty wage, is massive. The third figure in this is how Republicans are going to come up with this $1.1 trillion tax cut. And it is going to come mostly by cutting Medicaid to the tune of $880 billion, and cutting SNAP by $230 billion. So that way people won't be able to eat and people won't be able to get health care. This is a remarkably evil commitment to the Republican Party to watching Americans suffer. These people need to be shamed every time they leave their house. I mean this with all of my heart. These people are evil. They are insidious ghouls. They only care about the wealthy people who line their pockets. And I don't want to hear that, the Democrats do it too, because yes, I've said that about the Democrats before, and I do believe that. Hakeem Jeffries just went to Silicon Valley to talk to billionaires to make sure they don't go to the Republicans. But the Democrats, Kamala Harris, for all the shit that she didn't say on her campaign, at least at one point was very clear about the fact that if you make less than $400,000, your tax bill will not change. Bernie Sanders, his second most notable policy goal is taxing billionaires and corporations, which is exceedingly popular. Working class people should not be paying more in federal income than Jeff Bezos. It's really sick. The fallout from this is going to be disastrous. One of the lone reasons that I'm optimistic about the future of this country is the fact that we have midterms coming up in 2026, and that there are going to be a lot of these congresspeople up for re-election. By 2026, the damage will be done. The Republican policy agenda will be entirely enacted, and the effects will be felt by all of the people, by everyone in the country, especially those who live in deep red states and live in rural America and voted for Trump and voted for these representatives. And they are not going to be happy. They are not going to be happy when, for example, the price of insulin goes up. I saw a post from C-SPAN. A caller called in and said that his insulin under Joe Biden was $6 for a 28-day supply. Now it's $80. $6 to $80. There are going to be people who are not able to get medical care. And they're going to be fucking pissed. And I hope that all of these demons are voted out of office. And I hope that the Republican Party crumbles after these midterms.